Hello, Star Trek fans, and welcome to the Rebinge Deep Space Nine podcast. My name is Kim.
And my name is James.
And we're watching Star Trek Deep Space Nine from the beginning, one episode at a time. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are on Season 5, Episode 23, Blaze of Glory. This episode aired May 12th, 1997. Before we talk about this one, anything to say about last week's episode, The Children of Time?
Well, there's a couple of things I think we forgot in the overanalysis.
Oh.
First one, this was a chance for them to answer that question whether Bashir's genetic engineering would be passed on to any offspring.
Oh, that's true. Although, that's a question that we have. Is that really a question that the show had? It should be.
I don't know, but it's important to us.
Yeah, they could have answered it. Yep.
And the second one is, that whole hunky Odo look of the romance novel type Odo.
Yeah.
Odo loves to read romance novels. Did he, as a changeling, pick up what characteristics he should have from the covers of romance novels?
Maybe. All he was missing was the long flowing hair.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Can't believe I missed that one. And I think that wraps it up for last week's overanalysis.
But other than that, it was perfect. We covered everything.
Yes.
All right, well then let's talk about this episode.
Absolutely.
In the cold open, we're in Sisko's quarters, and Sisko has made dinner for Nog and Jake. We learn that squid is Nog's favorite human food, which tracks.
Yep.
After they both say they're loving the food, Sisko reveals that the sauce is puree of tube grubs, which makes Jake gag.
He does not like even the concept of that, does he?
No, well, I understand. He says it's only fair that with Nog eating squid, they should try tube grubs. It's a very Starfleet way of thinking.
It is.
When Sisko asks Nog how he likes working in security, he claims it's fine, but Jake reveals he's been complaining about it. This is not a good friend thing to do. I mean, roommates need to keep your secrets from the parents. That's just, rule number one of being a roommate.
And it's his boss.
Yeah, it's not nice. Not surprisingly, it turns out Nog is having problems with the Klingons. He feels like they're disrespectful of him, never looking him in the eye, even pretending he's not there. Sisko suggests that he acts more like a Klingon the next time that happens and stands up to them.
Yeah, as he's a Starfleet cadet, you'd think he could ask Worf for advice about how to deal with Klingons. They're both Starfleet.
But he's afraid of Worf.
Well, he can kill somebody just by looking at them.
Right. I can't imagine that Klingons are particularly respectful of any cadet.
Yeah, I get what you mean, but I think part of what we've seen with the Klingons is they don't respect anyone who will let them push them around.
Well, that's true.
If he pushes back, which is sort of Sisko's advice,
yeah,
and if he stands up for himself, they're more likely to respect you.
Yeah.
I see the Klingons as culturally people who will always push your boundaries, and not in a good way.
Well, I guess we saw that in the recent Klingon episode where Dax threw one of the guys on the floor when he sat in her seat.
Yes.
Okay, good point.
Yeah, Dax knows Klingons. He should ask Dax. Dax is an expert on them.
Yeah, and he's not afraid of her.
Right.
Well, just then Martog comes in saying he needs to speak to the captain alone, and Nog thinks this is his chance to stand up to someone, but Sisko is like, not now, and Jake drags Nog out. Martog's crew was patrolling the Cardassian border and intercepted a Maquis transmission. They're both surprised that there are even any Maquis left alive, since the Dominion joined with the Cardassians, but apparently there are. The message is a human woman saying, Michael, we hope you get this message. We've launched the missiles. They should reach Cardassia in 13 days. No missiles have been detected, but Martog learned that the Klingon High Council had decided to help the Maquis a few months ago and supplied them with 30 Class 4 cloaking devices, which could now be mounted on missiles.
I feel Sisko missed an opportunity here to say, and who thought this was a good idea?
Yeah. Sisko knows this is very bad news because if the missiles hit Cardassia, it's likely to start a war with the Dominion and bring doom to the Alpha Quadrant. And we cue the theme song.
So, this is the point. After you hang these people out to dry with a really bad treaty with the Cardassians, then when they fight back, they hunt them down. Now they're leaving them to the Jem'Hadar to do their dirty work and kill them all, obviously without helping.
Yeah.
And then the concern is, they could attack the Cardassians and start a war. Is Starfleet delusional?
I don't even know what to say about that. I feel like we've talked about this quite a bit, that this treaty that they formed that caused the Maquis to be created, that it was a terrible idea that we just had to live with.
Yeah.
But it did seem like Sisko never accepted it as a bad idea.
Right.
He sort of stuck to it to the bitter end here.
It even cost him his friend Cal.
It did. But it's a mess for sure. And you can't deny that the Federation had a part in creating the Maquis.
Yeah, and they seem to be quite happy to stand by and allow the Maquis to be destroyed, murdered.
Yeah, well, to be, brutally killed. I did wonder why the Klingons gave a bunch of cloaking devices to the Maquis for their ships, but why they don't give them to the Federation. Like, I've never really understood why Starfleet doesn't have cloaking devices.
It's because of the Romulan treaty.
Yeah, so... We're now pals with the Romulans, right? They all turned up to help fight in this war.
And you could also bring up the fact that the Romulans aren't exactly trustworthy.
Yeah.
I guess
and
it's
the Klingons are flying around with them. I don't know. That just never made sense to me. I mean, they did it purely for the story.
Oh, yeah.
Well, after the theme song, we're in Ops, and Dax and Worf report that they spent 50 hours searching the Badlands for missiles, but had no success. I mean, they're searching for invisible missiles, so I'm not sure what they expected.
Yes, in an environment where sensors don't really work very well.
Yeah. We do hear that the Defiance engines are too powerful to allow the cloak to fully hide them from the Dominion when they're in the Badlands, so this will give us an excuse to take a runabout on whatever we're about to do instead of the Defiant.
I actually like that as a good way of neutralizing the Defiant. Otherwise, you could say, well, why didn't they just take the Defiant out there and do this?
Absolutely.
So I think from a storytelling perspective, it works very well.
Yeah. Well, they agree they need more info to help narrow their search, and Sisko has an idea. And of course, his idea is Snodgrass / Eddington. Probably the Michael in the message, although I'm not sure I remembered him ever being called Michael.
Oh.
But anyway, Snoddy is in a tiny jail, still wearing his rebel outfit from the Les Mis episode, so he's not even been allowed a change of clothes.
Maybe he just has a large replicated wardrobe of exactly the same pirate outfit.
All the same. I think you'd want something more comfy if all you can do is sit in a 6x6 cell. Well, Snoddy's even more obnoxious than usual here, I guess maybe because he's been caught. Sisko shows him the message, but he plays dumb, and Sisko tells him billions of people will be killed in a war if those missiles hit Cardassia, but Snodgrass really doesn't care about the Dominion or the Cardassians.
No.
He says they've already wiped out everything and everyone he cares about.
Yes, and Sisko says about how he listened to the same reports or read the same reports, and it's like, oh, and you all sat there going, oh gosh, if there was only something.
Yeah, this is so sad.
Yeah, to me, this seems like the Federation being complicit by deliberate inaction.
Yeah.
They're letting the Jem'Hadar do what they couldn't morally do.
Right.
But we're just going to sit here and let it happen.
Yeah, this is a tough topic, this one.
Yes.
I wonder if this is why we're sort of tying a ribbon around this topic here and ending it. They don't want to deal with it anymore in the writing.
That is probably a good point, that this is an area that's very riddled with minefields, and it's difficult to work with. At what point do the Federation get involved? When are they complicit? Yeah, I could see in the overall story arc, you're just going, okay, wrap this one up. We can't keep going.
Wrap it up.
We don't know where we're going.
But in real life, that's what happens.
Yeah.
Something just lingers forever, problems that are too hard to solve, and they just kind of get worse and worse.
If you're not actively prepared to deal with them.
Sisko assumes that there is a way to remotely deactivate the missiles, but Snodgrass says even if there is a way to do it, you'd have to transmit it from the launch site, and you're never going to find that.
Here's an important note.
Yeah.
If you're building a superweapon, don't put in an abort or a self-destruct code. Very important rule of all supervillains.
It seems like it's funny that he assumes that, but okay.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you probably have to, because what if it goes off course and it's headed for your house? I guess you just got to accept that risk.
If you're a supervillain, collateral damage is just a statistic.
Yeah, if you're a supervillain, that makes sense. Sisko asks if Snodgrass would help if he could get him a pardon, which I thought we offered that up awfully quickly.
Yeah, not a lot of negotiation skills there, I'm afraid.
No. But Snodgrass says we can't bring the Maquis back from the dead. He claims he just wants to stay where he is until the Jem'Hadar blows everything to pieces.
Eddington does seem a little fatalistic about the Federation's chances.
Well, but maybe we should have been cued in a little bit here that he was kind of bluffing.
Yeah, that's true, but it's hard to tell under all the smugness what his real thoughts are.
That's true.
Okay, I have an idea now.
All right.
Seeing as you were disappointed how the Les Miserables episode did not feature as a musical, I actually got to this point, and because you put it in my head, I'm now thinking this could be a musical episode. So,
oh, yeah.
If we see scenes that would fit perfectly a musical, we have to suggest what type of song and maybe even a name for it. Because this whole scene got to the end and I thought, wow, this would be an awesome musical number where Eddington wakes up and starts singing. And at the end of it, it would be called The Smugness of Eddington.
That's good. I like that. But I would also think they could have had the conversation, and then at the end, when he lays back down on the bed, he would turn over on his side and the spotlight would zoom in on his face, and then he would start singing a really sad song about all the Maquis being dead.
Oh.
Yeah. This would be a grim, somber song at this point.
Yeah.
Or there's also, hey, if we're going to talk about musicals, I have ideas. The other thing that could happen here is the audience could get a hint of what's really going on.
Yeah.
Like he could turn away from Sisko and then start singing a song about, have I drawn you into my web? Something like that. Oh, there's so many options. This would make a great musical.
I'm thinking while he's singing about how all the Maquis are dead, Sisko could be doing a background lyric of, there was nothing I could do. I wish I could help. There was nothing we could do.
Oh, that would be good. Yeah. I love it when they do that, when there are two people singing kind of separate songs. Yeah, but they merge them together. Oh, that'd be beautiful. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, that's a great idea. Well, now we have a scene that I have watched twice and I still do not understand. It seems that Morn attacked Quark, hitting him with a bar stool. Major Kira later caught him when he came running into the Bajoran shrine, stark naked, crying out to the prophets for protection. So they want to know, this is Odo and Kira and Bashir, they want to know what Quark said to Morn, and it turns out that he told him that the military personnel on the station were looking nervous, and it was only a matter of time before the Dominion launches a full-scale assault on the Federation, and the station would be the first target, and then nobody would survive. And that alone seems to have caused Morn to hit Quark in the head with a bar stool and run onto the promenade screaming that we're all doomed. Well, then Sisko calls and Kira leaves, and we thankfully never hear about this again.
Yeah, what exactly was this?
I don't know. I can only assume it's a reference to something that maybe you and I don't get, maybe to some movie. I don't know, but it's just a stupid scene that doesn't make any sense.
I know, right? I didn't really get it.
Yeah.
Tensions are running high. People are worried about what's happening.
There's lots of ways to show that.
Yeah. Has everybody forgotten? The emissary of the prophets specifically said the forthcoming war with the Dominion.
Yeah. I don't know. I got nothing. This made no sense.
And Kira, as the most devout believer in the prophets, she's got to be stockpiling arms for this one. If the emissary is telling her.
Maybe this is a little goofy song that takes place while they're changing out the sets behind them in the musical.
Genius, Kim.
Yeah.
That's excellent. The Panic of Morn.
Well, Sisko has called Major Kira to tell her his plan, and it's to find the launch site in the Badlands, and he's going to do it in a runabout, along with a new friend, a handcuffed Michael Eddington. And Kira looks quite surprised by this plan.
Yep.
And now we go to the two of them in the runabout, and we get a sanctimonious speech from Snoddy about growing his own food and not eating replicated food. He's so full of himself.
This was getting on to Gul Dukat level of, I really wish you would just shut up.
A little bit.
I didn't think he could actually turn the self-righteous smugness up another notch, but he has managed it.
Yeah. Eddington continues to say that he's not going to help, but Sisko is trying to prevent a war. Snodgrass blames Sisko for setting up the Maquis for slaughter, and then he tells Sisko that his friend Cal Hudson, who we met back in, season 2, I think, was killed in a skirmish with the Cardassians, and that really stings Sisko.
Oh, yeah, it does.
And then he launches into a speech about Sisko chasing after him was all about Sisko's ego and not about doing the right thing. This would be a great song, too.
Right.
He says, "You care less that we betrayed Starfleet and more that we betrayed you." And this is where I thought Snodgrass talking about ego is quite ironic.
I don't know if you got this impression, but I never felt that this was an ego issue with Sisko. I felt it was a professionalism issue with Sisko. He'd been given this job to do by Starfleet, bring Eddington in. I think he talked in the episode of saying it was 20 odd years since a task given to him had been assigned to another officer. It was more of a duty issue of, I need to do this because it's my job, not really an ego. Eddington had betrayed the principles of Starfleet. So there was that outrage aspect, but I always saw it as Sisko's professionalism more than the ego. Am I being too kind to Sisko on that?
I think maybe you are. When he was reacting to Cal Hudson being in the Maquis, he was very different from how he reacted to Eddington. Maybe that's because he had learned more over time about what the Maquis was doing, or maybe because Eddington escalated what the Maquis was doing. I'm not sure. But he was very cautious, doing a lot of talking with Cal. But when it came to Snodgrass's time, he's poisoning whole planets.
Yeah.
So I don't think Sisko's hands are clean anymore. Maybe they were, but at this point, I think it's very difficult to try to say that he's just doing his duty because he's gone far beyond what he should have done.
Yeah.
I think they've both done things that they should be ashamed of.
Yeah. Okay.
Whether or not he did what he did out of ego, I don't know. And I'm not sure it matters. The fact is, he crossed the line.
Yeah.
And he did something he shouldn't have done just so that he could get Eddington.
Right.
Now, do we look at it like the ends justify the means? Well, not really, because they all end up getting killed anyway.
Right.
He's not an innocent in this battle.
It went beyond just being duty.
Yeah, he's not on the side of righteousness.
Yeah.
They can both claim it, but both of them have done things they shouldn't have.
Gotcha. Okay.
Well, Sisko here is like, why not blame yourself? Your leadership led the Maquis right into their graves. There's lots of finger pointing, as we probably should have expected here in this scene.
Oh, yeah.
But again, nobody's innocent.
But I think Sisko is on the right track here when he tells Eddington, you can blame everyone else. You can blame me. You can blame Starfleet, the Federation, everyone but Eddington.
Yeah.
And I think that honestly fits with this character of Eddington that we see. Everything is everybody else's fault.
Oh, totally. He thinks he's the hero.
Yes, Eddington is the hero for the glorious cause, no matter what.
Totally agree. All I'm saying is Sisko's not the hero here either.
But I don't think the motivations behind Sisko are the same as Eddington.
They're not the same. No, I didn't say they were the same.
Yeah.
But Sisko is still trying to stand on the moral high ground. And I guess this is sort of that paradise thing, and Sisko is kind of fallen into it.
Yeah.
But I don't see him trying to help the people who are suffering. So you can be on your moral high horse, but people are suffering, and it's because of the Federation.
Yeah.
But before we leave the scene, Sisko does point out that Snodgrass's legacy will be causing the most catastrophic war in the Federation's history. And Snodgrass is like, I can live with that.
This is somewhat annoying from Sisko. He's putting all the blame on Eddington for starting a war. And it's like, did you forget the Klingons just had a war with the Cardassians caused by a changeling masquerading as Martog, and the Dominion holding Federation Klingon citizens prisoners tried to blow up a solar system, committing what you could only describe as overt acts of war. And you're saying, oh, well, it's all Eddington's fault.
Oh, no, I totally agree. This is really the Klingons' fault. Yeah. But Sisko's trying to be dramatic to get his attention. That's, I guess, the way I viewed it. That's what Starfleet captains do.
Okay. He's trying to appeal to Eddington. Okay. Yeah. I will accept that.
Now we go to Quark's, and some Klingons are headbutting each other for fun. And Nog is ready to escort them to a holding cell for disturbing the peace. But just when he gets ready to make his move, he falls backwards in his chair, and then everyone laughs. So this was not his moment either.
Total musical number here. The embarrassment of Nog.
For sure.
Yep, lying on the floor, singing about how nobody respects him.
Yes.
The whole number is done with Nog on his back, on the chair.
Yeah, that would be pretty good. And you can kind of picture it like one of the songs from the latest Bob's Burger movie.
Oh, yeah. With the Klingons dancing in the background. Yeah,
the
perfect.
Klingons dancing. Wouldn't that be hilarious? Come on.
Oh, yeah.
At least write that into Lower Decks. Something.
Mike McMahon, if you're listening, we are available.
Yeah, we'll help you out. Meanwhile, in the Badlands, 2 Jem'Hadar warships are heading towards the runabout. Sisko plays a little chicken by telling Snodgrass he's going to have to get them out of trouble, and he removes the handcuffs, and then he goes and gets himself a Raktajino. And eventually Snodgrass does jump up and change their course. He says he'll help Sisko deactivate the missiles, but then after that, he says, we're going to have it out. And Sisko's like, oh, you want to fight? You'll get one. But Eddington doesn't intend to fight Sisko. He says he intends to kill him. Big drama into the ad break.
That was a good move by Sisko. I think he knows there's a lot more bluster with Eddington.
Yeah, because he didn't believe in his death wish. Well, we find after the ad break that they haven't completely lost the Jem'Hadar warships, and Sisko is looking for some new ideas. Snoddy suggests that they realign the impulse flow regulators without shutting down the engines, and Sisko says, one wrong move and the flow regulators will blow up in your face. Well, in your face, Snodgrass says, because I'll be piloting the ship. I didn't quite understand why he couldn't send Snoddy down to work on the flow regulators. But anyway.
Plus, if the ship gets disabled, then won't the Jem'Hadar just kill Eddington as well?
Yeah. So Eddington says when he's finished realigning the flow regulators or whatever he's supposed to do, they'll use the impulse exhaust to detonate the plasma field behind them. The shock wave will wipe out any trace of their ion wake. So Sisko is like, fine, but hold the ship steady to avoid any accidents. And Snodgrass sarcastically says he'll do his best. Then the computer tries to stop Sisko from this foolish task, but he overrides the safeties. And now the ship is bouncing around, and Sisko is getting zapped while trying to do the work. And he is yelling at Eddington. Eventually, he does get it done, and he tells Eddington to let her rip, which he does. And Sisko gets thrown around in the corridor, but the resulting explosion does manage to throw the Jem'Hadar ships off their trail.
Yeah, we get a nice little bit of space special effects of the cockroach ships being blown backwards by this plasma explosion.
Yeah, that was good. And then Sisko arrives back on the bridge. Is it called the bridge on the runabout? Anyway, he arrives annoyed, and he throws Snodgrass around saying, now get us to the launch site. And we see now that he's got a really bad head wound from getting thrown around.
Yeah, you'd think that would result in something of a concussion.
Yeah, I'm sure in the future they just use a hypo spray on it and it's fixed.
Yeah, just run one of those spinning medical things that McCoy always had over it and it'll be fine.
Yeah, because later there's no trace of that head wound.
Yeah.
Back on the station, Nog gets yet another chance to make a stand with the Klingons. Martog and the Klingons are loitering on the promenade, which seems a little dumb that loitering is illegal, but okay.
It's run by Odo. It's a fascist regime, let's face it.
Yeah, you only worry about teenagers loitering. I guess maybe hoodlums. That's what we're supposed to think, that the Klingons are hoodlums.
Oh, dear.
Well, Nog tells Martog that it's time to move along, stating station regulation. Martog very scarily leans down and says, you are either very brave or very stupid, Ferengi. And Nog says,
Yeah.
Probably a little bit of both. And that makes Martog really laugh. And he tells his companions, courage comes in all sizes. But then he leans back down to Nog and he says, but don't tempt fate. And the Klingons move along.
And we start the musical number, The Honor of Nog.
Yeah, and Jake is really impressed here, and Nog struts down the hallway. So yeah, you'd have some jaunty music going there.
Yeah, exactly. Although I will defend the no loitering for the Klingons, because we've already seen that Martog, as part of normal Klingon discipline, will throw people off the second level.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, well, we don't want him doing that, because you could hurt somebody else. But I mean, if you're just standing around, I'm not sure I would try to move the Klingons along. Well, Eddington now takes the runabout to Athos 4, a grim little fog-bound piece of rock in the middle of nowhere. That's what he calls it. Sensors can't even detect it. They can't beam there, of course, and instead must land on it. So next, we're walking through foggy tunnels when we run into two Jem'Hadar soldiers. They get pinned down quickly, so Sisko gives Snodgrass his phaser and says he'll draw their fire. And this crazy plan works as Sisko comes around from the other side, knocks one of them down, and then Snodgrass shoots that one, and then the second one is about to shoot Sisko, but Snodgrass shoots him first. Well, now we continue on in the fog, and we stumble on a lot of dead human bodies.
Lots and lots of them.
Oh, yeah. And Snodgrass is really hit by the grim sight.
Eddington does seem quite shocked by this. He says that he was their leader and he failed them. And Sisko replies with, maybe we all failed them. Maybe we could have prevented this from happening. Well, the Federation certainly failed them.
Yeah.
And this sort of hand-wringing from Sisko, I found kind of annoying. It was almost like that if there was only something we could have done. What, instead of doing nothing?
Yeah, this is a tough one. Well, Sisko has to shake Snodgrass back into focus. At one point here, Sisko saves them both by shooting into what looks like an empty room, killing two cloaked Jem'Hadar soldiers.
This does beg the question of why the Jem'Hadar don't cloak all the time.
Yeah, who knows?
Or at least when they're going into battle.
Yeah, imagine how easy it would be to be an invisible ground troop.
Yeah, what would you be shooting at?
I thought it was funny that he takes no care in what's in all those containers and he just shoots into the room. Could have killed all of them. Well, finally, we open a room to find a group of Maquis, including the woman from the original message at the beginning of the episode, Rebecca Sullivan. Turns out she's Eddington's wife. I'm very happy she has her own name for a change, by the way.
And they cue the musical number with Rebecca called The Hero's Wife.
Oh, for sure. She can definitely have a solo here. Of course, it turns out there were no missiles. It was a ploy to let Snodgrass know that they had fallen back to this location. And Snodgrass tells Sisko he should be happy because the Dominion counterattack isn't going to happen. And Sisko does smile, but then he punches Eddington in the face. And Rebecca tells him to save the fight for later because they got to get out of there.
I think with that level of smug, Eddington pretty much deserved it at that point.
Yeah.
Also, Eddington said to him that they weren't supposed to be here. No one knew about this base. More genius strategic planning from Eddington.
Yeah.
Especially seeing as how the founders have been replacing people for years now.
Yeah, right.
And they were making the assumption that none of the Maquis were changelings, or nobody sold out the Maquis, that they wouldn't know about this base. #idiots.
And did he not see Star Wars? They always know where the rebel bases are.
Especially when you're dealing with founders who could replicate and impersonate anyone.
Yeah, totally agree.
And following on from poor strategic planning from Eddington, when they're escaping, the Jem'Hadar shoot one of the Maquis in the back. They're just terrible, and they don't even have the concept of, rear security. This bugs me because Eddington is supposed to be the security officer.
Right.
And even today, in militaries, there are manuals about, basically, if you're retreating, having rear security in your column. Basically having someone who protects the rear and can alert the people ahead of them that, oh, the enemy's coming up behind. It kind of makes me laugh because it shows just how bad Eddington is at this stuff. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, I do see what you mean. I would think Eddington is a bit emotionally compromised at this point, seeing all those dead bodies.
Yeah.
Maybe he has a concussion from getting punched in the face. Who knows? But it's possible that he's not thinking clearly.
Yeah.
They're running out in panic.
Right.
But also, I think it's totally legitimate to think he's not as good at this as he thinks he is.
Yes.
Yeah. Because your ego, I think we've always seen this, certainly in TV shows and movies, that if your ego gets too big, you start to make mistakes.
Right. I think that fits with Eddington.
Well, in the end, Snodgrass gets shot, and he's unable to keep running, so he volunteers to draw the Jem'Hadar fire, letting everyone else get away, and he finally gets his wish of being the ultimate martyr. I did think maybe they would leave it unknown,
Right.
whether or not he survived, but he gets shot and you see him die.
Well, we think we see him die. He does get shot a lot, though.
That's true. But as he's about to be killed, he actually says something smart, and he says, now would be a good time for a song. And I was like, yes, sing!
Yes.
But he doesn't sing.
That was actually pretty good.
It was.
Even Eddington thinks this would be a good musical episode.
Oh, totally. They were reading our minds.
Yeah. And I'm just going to say, yet again, Eddington, instead of staying in his position and continuing to lay down covering fire to help them escape, basically bum rushes the Jem'Hadar.
Runs out.
And gets shot multiple times.
No, really dumb. Totally dumb.
Mistake after mistake.
Well, he ends up getting shot and killed, but everyone else gets away. And Sisko has to tell his wife that he's not coming. Back on the station, Kira is impressed because Nog found an earring clip that she lost while doing a deflector inspection. And just as the two of them are stepping onto the elevator together, Martog steps off, carefully avoiding running into Nog. They address each other formally, and Kira is like, what was this all about? And Nog smugly says, respect. So he got what he wanted.
I also think this was another little nod to Nog being very thorough in what he does. He really takes his Starfleet duties seriously. Finding Kira's earring is because he would do the inspection down to the nanometer.
Yeah.
He really would take it seriously. Nog really embraces Starfleet.
Yeah, Nog is clearly hyper keen, right?
Yeah.
When he first came back and moved in with Jake, and he was doing everything exactly precisely.
Right.
And following the rules. Yep. And even in this episode, he's following he's quoting station regulation. So yeah, I think they are trying to show us that he's become really detail oriented.
Yes.
Now we go to Sisko's quarters, and Dax says that Eddington went out the way he wanted, in a romantic, glorious death in defense of a lost cause. She can definitely talk about this on her podcast, Inappropriate Conversations with Jadzia Dax.
Yes.
Sisko agrees that he died fighting for what he believed in. And he says he once called him a traitor, but in a way, he was the most loyal man that he's ever met. And then they wonder if this is the end of the Maquis, but they figure they'll never know for sure. The end.
I think you missed here that Sisko looking out the window, we should have gone straight into the musical number, Are They Gone?
Yeah.
A solo by Sisko. Maybe Dax could have been in the background singing the chorus.
I think it would have made more sense if it was just Sisko singing that. Yeah, I agree. That would have been a good one. And you have to show the visual from the outside of the station looking into the window to start the song.
Yeah, perfect.
Or, no, to finish the song as you pull out and through the window and into the vastness of space because we don't know where the Maquis are hiding.
Wow. Nice.
I missed my calling, I think.
Yeah, you could be doing the stage direction for Deep Space Nine, the musical.
Well, do you have overanalysis?
Well, Dax makes a comment in this closing scene about there's something attractive about a lost cause.
Is there?
Depends on the lost cause, because I can think of a few lost causes off the top of my head that definitely aren't attractive.
Yeah, I do not agree.
I think she's been hanging out with the Klingons too much.
Well, I almost feel like this is an extension of what happened in the For the Uniform episode where they were giving us all those Les Mis parallels. And this is trying to add to the romance of it here, because she even uses the word romantic. But none of this is there's no romance in any of this.
Right.
There's no romance in somebody dying a martyr or whatever. So I just feel like they're trying to continue with that theme.
I get you. Yeah.
But I say baloney.
You know, speaking as a Klingon, you know what's really romantic? A glorious victory in defense of a lost cause. An honorable lost cause. Next thing, let's talk about Eddington. Eddington is not either strategically or tactically as smart as he thinks he is.
Yep.
Eddington is the guy that's going to get you killed. A few examples of this in this episode. Like when Sisko shoots the cloaked Jem'Hadar and he says, "Oh, I'm glad one of us remembered that. Oh, wait a minute, you're supposed to be the security officer." When they're trying to escape and he doesn't have a proper rear guard and the guy just gets shot in the back while they're escaping. All these things, I think, add up to Eddington is a truly terrible leader. And this whole plan of having this planet that, oh, well, the Jem'Hadar can't find it. Really? You know that for certain? This is your plan? I will say that the plan of this fake missile launch and getting Starfleet, maybe it would have been Sisko, maybe he thought it would be someone else, springing him to come and find the base and he would escape. That was a good plan. That I thought was smart. So that was definitely Rebecca thinking that one out.
It could have been her plan. It was a good plan. It worked.
Yeah, better than Snoddy. Because I see Eddington as being absolutely terrible at this stuff.
Yeah, because the smart thing to do once they got down onto that rock and they saw the first two Jem'Hadar soldiers would have been to tell Sisko what was going on.
Yes.
And then they could have just done a rescue mission.
Right.
Instead of what Sisko thought they were doing. Because I think Sisko was probably prepared to sacrifice whatever he needed to in order to stop these missiles. But there weren't any missiles.
Right. And I think this all boils down to that smugness of Eddington and that feeling that Eddington's never really been recognized for his abilities, which they seem to downplay a little in this episode.
Yeah.
In the previous ones, I thought it came out as Eddington as one of those people who just has a chip on their shoulder about how their genius isn't recognized. And the Maquis he's exploiting believe him that he is this great leader, when reality, this guy is simply going to get you killed.
Maybe he was the best they had, though.
That's even scarier.
You know, in the end, he kind of won. He got out of jail. He died in the blaze of glory that he claimed that he wanted.
Yeah.
He saved his wife from certain death.
That's true.
But I guess it also showed his complete failure in trying to defeat the Cardassians rather than helping his people find a new way to live. That was the point that Sisko kept trying to make.
Yeah.
Because it was all about revenge and nobody was going to win in that scenario.
Yeah. He wasn't looking for a solution. He was looking to be the hero.
He was. And the Federation screwed these people over. There's no doubt about that.
Yes. Yeah.
But what he did just led to their ultimate demise.
Yeah, which is why I think he was preying on them to a large extent.
Yeah.
For his own ego.
Makes him an even more tragic figure than I think we thought of before.
Yeah, he brought these other people into his folly.
He did.
This is totally the plot of a musical.
Yeah, 100%.
Next thing, Cal Hudson.
Mm.
Seeing as this episode clearly shows Eddington is quite duplicitous, and using Rebecca's plan got him out of jail. They do seem to have plans within plans. Is Cal really dead, or is this just a deception to keep the heat away from Cal?
Oh, yeah, I hope that's the case.
Me too. He was genuinely, I would say, a man of honor.
More than Snodgrass, yeah.
Oh, completely. Well, they came from it, I think, from maybe different directions. And I think Cal was looking for a righteous cause, whereas Snodgrass was looking to be a hero.
Yep, agreed.
Next thing, we've seen that the Federation basically stood on the sidelines while the Maquis were being slaughtered by the Jem'Hadar. And the Jem'Hadar are also being very aggressive. You know, we can't forget that they tried to blow up the station. The whole Bajoran system. I'm wondering if there's a deliberate writing parallel here of the appeasement that happened in the 1930s. And they're sort of winding a story in a similar vein. You know, there's this aggressive, expansionist regime that's now taken over Cardassia, and there's sort of an element of placating them to try and keep the peace. And because because Earth is such a long way away, and it's paradise where we live, there is this attitude of, oh, well, it's all a very long way away. We'll just appease them. It'll be fine. Personally, I see that as very much what they're aiming at.
Interesting.
Besides which, the Dominion will take years for them to get here. We'll be fine.
Meanwhile, they're already there.
Exactly. And I think that wraps up my overanalysis.
Really? I thought you would have more.
Well, I complained about the Federation a lot earlier.
Well, that's true. We did talk about that.
So over to you.
Well, Sisko is right that Snoddy needs to see his part in all this, a pointless skirmish with the Cardassians that ended in their alliance with the Dominion. But it's not all the Maquis' fault, as we talked about. I think the Klingons are mostly to blame.
Right.
For their attack on the Cardassians.
My theory was the Cardassians have always been on the edge of collapse. You could apply this same principle to the Bajorans.
Yep.
The Bajorans fought them to a standstill for 50 years. The Bajorans effectively pushed them into the arms of the Dominion by not surrendering. You can apply that sort of logic to pretty much anything to do with an oppressive power. I feel Sisko is just quoting the official Federation line there.
Yeah, and the only other note I have in my overanalysis that we haven't already talked about is that I found Nog maybe a little smug. This was a heavily smug episode. As soon as we brought Snoddy back, we knew that was going to happen. Yeah. And I wrote down an alternative title of A Blaze of Smugness.
Oh, that's an awesome title for this one.
Well, that's all I have. So I'm going to go to women in the future. And there's not a lot to say, not a lot of women, but I was happy to see a married woman with her own name. That was a pleasant surprise, especially when we just had this conversation. So that was all I wrote in Women in the Future. So let's just go to rating. Thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral. What is your rating?
I rate this an absolute thumbs up. I thought it was a good episode. It was consistent with how I pictured Eddington. And I liked the twist in the story. I enjoyed it. I thought it worked quite well. The B plot was also kind of funny. Nog not getting the respect from the Klingons until he would basically stand up for himself. I did like that as well. So I will definitely give this a thumbs up. I did enjoy this episode. And it stands up well in the rewatching as well.
Yeah, I thought the B plot was something that was actually not so intrusive and not so ridiculous, especially when the A story was so dramatic. So I thought that worked.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I give it a thumbs up too. I hate to see the end of Eddington, but I guess it had to happen. It was bound to happen.
Well, this is a difficult plot, I think, to write for. The whole question of the Maquis and the moral ambiguity of the Federation.
Yeah.
We're not used to the Federation being, they're not really being the good ones here.
Yeah, that is definitely a strange issue in Star Trek.
Right.
An unfamiliar territory, I guess.
And I can see you getting really wrapped around the wheel of trying to tell a story like that.
Yeah, agreed. Well, that wraps up Season 5, Episode 23. Come back next week for Episode 24. In the meantime, if you'd like to send us your own overanalysis of this or any episode, or if you just want to say something nice, you can email us at ReBingeIT@gmail.com or tweet us at ReBingeIT. We're also on Instagram and YouTube at ReBingeIT. You can check us out on talkthroughmedia.com. You can leave feedback there for individual episodes, and you can also listen to all of the other Star Trek podcasts in our network. Additionally, if you would like to support the podcast, you can support patreon.com/Star Trek TTM. That doesn't just support our podcast, it supports all the Star Trek podcasts on our network.
Thanks for joining us on the Rebinge Deep Space Nine podcast.
That's it for me.
And that's it from me.